Hey there, fellow Reddit enthusiasts. If you love diving into intriguing Reddit stories, you'll want to stick around till the end. We've got a captivating one lined up for you today. For this video, we're delving into the fascinating world of relationships, so buckle up for a deep dive into some compelling stories. My 33F husband, 38M, wants to open up our marriage or separate. A little bit about our marriage. I stopped working when I became pregnant with our first son and never went back to work because we haven't needed it. My husband makes a $400K working from home with a very flexible schedule. I tend to do more of the childcare since I don't work, but honestly, not that much more. He loves spending time with our children, has a rather intense personality when it comes to organization, so he's very pro-cleaning. And one of his greatest passions, along with intercourse, is cooking, so he plans and cooks more than half of our meals. We still have our ups and downs, of course, but overall we're both very patient and caring people in, up to this point, a very patient and caring relationship. Our views on child rearing align more or less entirely, and my entire family absolutely love him. His family is not in the picture. He grew up extremely poor in an unstable household. Before I got pregnant, we had intercourse 10+ times a week as a baseline. Of course, sometimes one of us was too busy, or stressed, or physically unwell, and that was never a problem. All things usual though, we had intercourse more than once a day for years. Then we decided to have children. We both love children and knew that this would change almost every element of our lives in marriage. In conversations around this, we did discuss the likelihood of intercourse being less frequent for a while, and it didn't seem like a big deal. During the pregnancy, we continued to have pretty regular intercourse. That changed drastically once my son was born. I felt like I had zero libido, but my husband was extremely understanding at the time. He said that I just grew a human, so it makes sense for my body to be prioritizing different things. He was more or less happy with more sporadic intercourse for the next 2 years, and I thought everything was fine. Once our youngest was around 18 months, he started to instigate more mornings and nights again. I turned him down a decent amount because I just wasn't feeling any desire for intercourse. After a couple months of this, he asked me what he could do to help me get my drive back to what it used to be. He asked this gently, and I didn't respond as well as I could have. It was upsetting in the moment, and we ended up having really the first big fight of our marriage over it. We both ended up apologizing, but it was only a couple weeks later that he instigated another talk about it. Mind you, it's not like we never have intercourse. We're probably having intercourse 2-3 times a week. He suggested that we get couples therapy and that maybe I should see an endocrinologist. I responded better this time and agreed. Hormone panels came back regular, so we tried a couple different therapists for a few sessions each. Both basically said his expectations were unrealistic, and partnerships are about compromise. In those sessions, my husband's response was that he isn't ready to compromise on something that's so important to him. He was asked if it's more important to him than having a healthy marriage. And while he said no, in hindsight, there was some definite hesitancy. Over the following months, I noticed a decrease in emotional affection on his end. It's hard to put a finger on, and for a while I told myself it was just in my head. He's still attentive, caring, and affectionate, but there is just a lack of depth in the intimacy compared to the past 7 or 8 years. He also stopped initiating intercourse as often, which I hope was just him becoming more comfortable with some level of compromise. But I approached the subject with him. He said that getting rejected multiple times a week wasn't healthy for his emotional disposition, so he's balancing how much he initiates with how much rejection he can handle. Obviously, I was happy to hear this, and I explained to him that I wasn't rejecting him out of any lack of love or desire for him. He said he knew that, but kind of brushed it off still. I've tried to get him to go to therapy by himself, but he insists that everyone has different method for processing things, and therapy isn't one of his. So things continued like this for the rest of the year, and to be honest, I kind of thought this was it. Then comes last night. He walked into our room after putting the kids down. We take turns reading them books before bedtime, and said he needed to have a serious discussion. I immediately knew it was going to be about intercourse, because the only times in the 9 years I've known him that he says we need to talk with such somber dread, it's about our intercourse life. I was not at all prepared for what he said though. Through tears, this is the first time I've ever seen him cry from sadness. He said that he wasn't built to be in a relationship that didn't regularly express love through intercourse. He said that he would always love me and that I'd always be the mother of his children, but he can't and won't go on like this. He told me that he believes there are only 2 options. Either we divorce and continue to co-parent, or we open up the marriage and he finds someone else to have intercourse with multiple times a week. Transparently, the first half of the ensuing conversation is a bit of blur because of how emotional it was. I went from being devastated, bordering pathetic, to furious with more rage than I've ever felt in my life. I said some things I regret and didn't mean. He stayed relatively calm throughout it, but he did say that he wouldn't have a conversation with me if I kept yelling. Eventually, I calmed down and begged him to try and rekindle our intercourse life. I even tried to initiate right there, which is incredibly embarrassing now, which he rejected. He said he was open to working on getting our intercourse life back to a place that was happy for both of us, but that can't mean me having intercourse when I don't really want to, and that he has needs he has to go get elsewhere for now. I told him I didn't want to open up our marriage and begged him more to work it out. He said he needed some space and he was going to go stay with a friend of his for the night. I texted him early that morning to let him know not to come, and that I was going to take the kids to visit my parents for a couple days. He was hesitant, but agreed to let me take them for a while I process. I don't know what to do. I don't want to lose this marriage, but the thought of him sleeping with other people hurts so fucking much. I don't know what I'm looking for, or if there's any advice to be had. I feel like my world is collapsing, and it's my fault. My parents know something is wrong because of how distressed I am, and even worse, both of our sons can tell. I've tried to hide it, but I'm a mess. My husband says if we stayed together and he felt rejected regularly, he'll end up resenting me, and that it's better for our children to have separate parents than resentful ones. Should I open up the marriage or move forward with divorce? A lot of the comments are well-meaning, but really assume the worst of my husband. His position on intercourse is extremely immature and selfish. I can see that now, and I don't have to forgive him for it. He is also incredibly loving and kind person who has supported me through thick and thin. He holds himself to obsessively high standards, and while people will say, I'm native, I know this man well, and I can't imagine him bearing the guilt of adultery. He simply thinks too high of himself and is too sensitive. He is staying at his married friend from college. He is godfather to their 3 children. His wife has already reached out to offer support if I want to talk since she knows we are going through trouble. I don't think it's a stretch to say he will regret this, but to those that think he is going to have trouble finding people to sleep with and run back to me, well, he was a regular in an intercourse and BDSM communities in his 20s before we met. I knew this from early on, and never stopped exercising 6 days a week. I would like to tell myself that he would come running back after realizing it's hard out there, but I just don't think that's the case. I think his view of the world is that if he does what is asked of him, he can ask the world to have his cake and eat it too. For people saying to take him for everything he has, I'm going to talk to a divorce lawyer this week. I will of course do my due diligence, but he has always been generous with his money, with charities, friends, etc., and loves his children as much as I do. I do not say that lightly. I'm not going to try and ruin him, as some have suggested. We are still going to be co-parents even if we separate, and I want to handle this with maturity. If we don't see eye to eye, then I won't shy away from court, but I honestly think he will sign whatever number I give if it's remotely fair. He is a bad partner for his decision, but you don't know him like I do, and he isn't a bad man. I've watched him struggle to figure this out, and he is too selfish to accept the obvious answer, but it isn't for lack of remorsey. Just, I don't know, immense selfishness and a will that believes the world can be what he wants, while also wanting it to be one of love and compassion, if that makes sense. Thank you again. We'll respond to comments when I have time. My husband wants to meet and talk this evening. I'm going to meet him. I'll give one more update after we meet, if that's allowed. There are too many comments at this point to respond to them. To answer some questions that seemed genuine. 1. Yes, he is obsessive, and yes, he has childhood trauma. These things don't excuse him from what I now realize was an entirely unacceptable decision to give me an ultimatum. 2. To say that the intercourse is good for me when WW do have it would be an understatement. I'm not going to get into the details, but his appetite for life and energy is one of the reasons I fell in love with him. He definitely has an atypical view of intercourse beyond his extreme high libido. He'd describe his view as not being orgasm-oriented, and he often doesn't orgasm. Strangely, that's not the important part for him. I used to joke that he has intercourse like he cooks. Most of the best meals and all of the best intercourse I've ever had have come from him. 3. The advice here has made me realize that we are probably going to get divorced, and no matter what, he needs therapy. He's so high-functioning that I never really thought he needed it, but some of you have made some excellent points, and my mind has completely changed on that. No matter what, I love him, and he will always be the father of our beautiful children, so I will try to convince him to go to therapy, even with us divorced. 4. I'm not going to spend more time on the infidelity. I'm sure some people are sincerely trying to help, but there's obviously nothing I can say to convince many people that I'm not entirely native or wearing rose-colored glasses. That's fine. I'm sure denial is the first step is true for lots of adultery survivors. Internet strangers project. It's what we do. 5. Yes, my libido was matching his pace for years, but I think a key difference may be that I wasn't like that before I met him. When we started dating, his friends endearingly called him slut because he slept with a lot of women. I knew all this. I was his first serious relationship at 29 years old, and I liked that. I always felt like his friends treated me a little special because of it. In hindsight, we should have talked about the inevitable, eventual decline in intercourse frequency. I remember looking across the table from him on one of our first dates when he said, I eat a lot of great food and have a lot of great intercourse. At 24, it sounded like he had figured out what was important. Now at 33, I don't think he's matured appropriately to recognize there are so many more important things. I feel sorry for both of us that this is the case. 6. Reading divorce literally hundreds of times in the comments has helped, I think. It still doesn't feel real, but I don't feel uncontrollable devastation every time I think about it now. I'm trying to digest that is probably where my life is heading. I want the divorce to be one that is led with love. I don't care that internet strangers think that isn't possible. He may not be capable of living the life I want, but he's capable of that. Also, so many people are saying I should tell everyone why we are getting divorced. It's just another point that none of you know him. I promise he will tell them. He will say, we were no longer sexually compatible. There will be shock, but probably not as much as I wish. He is an incredible friend and godfather to more than one set of friends' children. They will stick by him, just like he would stick by them. Hold on to your seats. In the upcoming story update, we're weaving in more of your opinions. It's your chance to shape the narrative, so keep those insights flowing. Final update. Before I met my husband last night, I read every single comment and DM. Yes, every single one. With that in my head, I drove the hour to our home, leaving the kids at my parents'. I went in with multiple intentions, but overall, I wanted to keep my composure. I was scared to be hopeful, but I knew that deep down I was yearning for this to be a conversation where we felt connected. When I walked in, he was already sitting at the table. Jesus Christ. He looked like shit. This is a man who is typically hyper-composed, so before words were even said, I had already never seen him like this. He tried to ask me how I was doing and how the boys are. I was blunt that the boys are fine having a snow day, and that he was the one who asked me to come here, so tell me what you want to say. The way I said it didn't feel good, as there was an air of coldness that is just so foreign to how either of us speak to each other, but it's how it came out. He started by apologizing and saying that he could have done better at organizing his feelings and presenting what he thought our only remaining options were. I didn't read too much into this because he almost always thinks he could have done better in every situation in hindsight and is rarely satisfied with how he performs. Then the surprise. He said that he thought about it and that opening the marriage wouldn't fix anything, and that it was a desperate and frantic idea he had thought the night before. He said the only way forward is for us to separate. He said he had already gotten 3 months unpaid leave approved from work to handle things. He was breaking up a little bit already, and I was doing my best to not let that make me start breaking up, because one of my goals was to try and stay calm. Part of me regrets my next move, and to be honest, I know I did it because of some of the advice. I looked him in the eyes and asked him if he already found someone to sleep with. It felt cruel after I said it, because I didn't believe he had, and it obviously only hurt him further. Of course, he said no and asked me if I thought he was capable of that. I told him I didn't know what he was capable of anymore. More hurt. My emotional composure was also pretty much ruined when I said that because it made me start to cry, but at least not sobbing this time. He said the same things he said last time I saw him, that he would always love me, and that more important than anything is that I will always be our son's mother. We were both crying, but controllably, when the next thing came out of my mouth before I could even process it. I asked him if he's really ready to completely miss half of their lives. I knew obviously we were going to talk about our sons, but that question wasn't premeditated. It was a bomb. The last time I saw him was the first time I saw him cry from sadness, but it was controlled crying. The only words he managed to squeeze out were, "I don't know what to do." And then absolute breakdown. It isn't that I was anyway surprised by his love for our boys. I've known that since day one. I just honestly have never thought he was capable of losing control to the degree that followed, though. He was sobbing uncontrollably, just as bad as I had the night he sprung the ultimatum, probably worse. In that moment, I didn't know what to do. My heart was breaking for him, and I wanted to hold and cradle him like he's always done for me in that state. I was also still very angry at him, fair or not. I don't know how long I sat there, but I couldn't watch it that long before I was also crying harder, and then just saying that I was sorry. I told him I don't want to lose him, that he's the only person I want to wake up to every morning and share breakfast with our boys. He just said again and again that he didn't know what to do. I don't need to give further play-by-play, but it feels important and pleasantly vulnerable to share that. When the heavy crying passed, we kept talking, and I eventually brought up that his friend's wife had reached out to me. He said that he had shared everything with both of them. This wasn't a surprise given he was best man at their wedding and godfather to their children. And to the comments suggesting my husband was sleeping with literally his 20-year best friend's wife, I'm sorry for the gross world you live in. I asked what their advice was. They both said they would love him no matter what happened, but he should really get a therapist. I asked if he was going to. His first response was that he didn't want to. But a couple moments after that, he said that if both of them think he needs one, then he's sure they are right and he's going to find one that works for him. This felt like all the light I've been looking for in this dark chapter. In hindsight, I wish we would have involved any of his close friends earlier. They are his family. He respects my advice and seeks it out, but I was another party in the matter, and from his mind, my suggestions were just that. Now the people he loves and respects, and he believes they understand him, which is a list of like 5 people, have told him to go seek therapy for his relationship to sexual expression and validating love. As soon as he said he was going to try therapy, I grabbed his hands and swore I would work harder to give him what he needs. I told him that I can't view my life with anyone but him, and I don't want either of us to miss a Christmas or birthday or any other important moment in our sons' lives. I told him, let's go to Europe for a month. We've been once since the kids were born, but we took both of them, and it was kind of a visit our friends in Europe who want to meet our kids tour. Also, this was an idea I remember reading from a comment, so thank you. I promised many more things and meant them. We let my parents know I wouldn't be coming back for the boys tonight. I've overshared this experience in a way that is really weird and I won't ever do again, but it feels good. I'll leave the rest between my husband and I. I told my husband about the post and asked if it was okay with him if I wrote an update about what happened. He was concerned about anonymity, but I explained all the info I had given and decided he didn't care, which is his way of saying he does care, but he chooses not to care because he controls his relationship to control, not the other way around. He warily, with a touch of self-aware humor that's so on brand for him, asked if he wanted to see the post and replies. I told him he doesn't, to which he laughed and said okay. He doesn't use Reddit or any social media since he knows how the sausage is made. Neither of us are fools. We have a long road ahead and there is no guarantee it will work, but I'm going to try harder. Reading the comments made me realize some of this was indeed my fault. Not necessarily for doing anything wrong, but for misjudging what was at stake. I knew my husband felt bad about himself when he laid next to me wanting physical intimacy, and knowing I didn't. I truly didn't know, and maybe to a degree didn't listen, to how bad it hurt him. To say he overanalyzes things would be an insult to the franking, incredible ability his mind has for assessing so many possibilities, seemingly at the same time. He's been laying in bed with that feeling, just building and building and building. This isn't about physical, sexual release. Masturbating, or even fucking someone else wasn't going to release this. My husband is a hypersexual being, and that's okay. I love him entirely, including that part. And I need to do a lot more work to be better positioned, to get into a mood of sexual desire more often. But he needs to not feel explosive rage at himself on the inside when he doesn't receive the sexual intimacy every night. If we didn't have kids, I would feel less optimistic. I told him this is not impossible though, and we can work on this together. We've always been a team at everything else. We have to be a team here. This is now kind of a meandering rant, so I'll close it up with a few random points I thought about because of this thread. So many people have asked, and he said I could share. My husband is a network engineer. He taught himself to code as a teenager, for less than savory reasons, but he lived in slums and ethics are complicated, and got a full ride to one of the top programs in the country. Financially speaking, he's had a cushy life ever since. His words. I know he is damn good at what he does, but he also benefits from always handling finances like an obsessive analyst with a huge ego. Also, his words, this is going to be the most controversial piece, but fuck it. Reddit loves spice. In total transparency, there is very much a sense of desire to control my body from my husband. The interest is purely based on the premise of enthusiastic consent. It's a part of him though, and I've known and mostly admired his relationship to that part of himself for most of my time knowing him. The same date when he told me that he has a lot of great intercourse and eats a lot of great food, he asked me what my relationship to control was. It's an interesting thing for everyone to think about. He told me then and there that his relationship with control was very intense, that he is very sensitive to not wanting to coerce anyone and to be controlled because he furiously opposes anyone trying to do that to him. He knows it's in his personality, and he tries to be very self-aware of it, especially when interacting with friends and most importantly, our sons. You cannot understand my husband without understanding this. He tracks everything about his life. He journals every night and keeps all entries for the past 22 plus years of his life in a private server that he runs in our basement. He runs data analytics on it, just as he does with our finances and practically any other information he can coalesce. People asked if he is neurodivergent. Well, he isn't socially challenged at all, but he certainly isn't a normal person if that's the question. He also has had a serious sleeping disorder since he was a young child and only sleeps like 4 hours a night, yet still has way too much energy. He is beyond special, and I love him and I'm grateful to be with him. Many of you made sure to remind me of how special he is. Many of you hated him, but if you knew him, I think very few of you would feel that way. Even if you did, he's my husband, and I deeply hope we can make it stay that way. I'm going to do everything in my power to keep it that way. As one person messaged me, fuck your husband. No, seriously girl, please do whatever work you need to do to help you fuck your husband. You both deserve it. Thank you everyone who helped and those who tried. And to the misogynists, eat shit. Now, before we dive into the deep end, let's remember we're all human, and relationships are like a box of chocolates, sometimes sweet, sometimes nuts. Firstly, props to the storyteller for the vivid details. I felt like I was watching a dramatic series, complete with unexpected twists and turns. I haven't been this invested since I binge-watched that mystery series about a tiger king. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: stereotypes. Sure, we've got the ambitious husband, the stay-at-home wife, and their not-so-average intercourse life. But hold your judgment, folks. Life isn't a rom-com, and we're not here to throw stones. As for wit, well, let's appreciate the writer's honesty and the ability to navigate through a marital minefield. I mean, who knew relationships could be so complex? Forget the birds and the bees, we're talking data analytics and BDSM communities here. It's a whole new world. And humor? Well, life's tough, but so are we. It's like the universe is playing chess with our emotions. Just when you think it's game over, a twist comes along. It's like Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. We're all just trying to find our way through this crazy play. Now, for the positive message: love is weird, relationships are messy, and people are complex. But hey, isn't that the beauty of it all? Life doesn't come with a script, so let's embrace the unpredictability, learn from the crazy experiences, and maybe, just maybe, find a way to navigate our own love stories without the need for a therapist's couch. Before we unravel the next chapter, let's take a pit stop at the community comments. Your thoughts and reactions are the heartbeat of our discussions. User Dominique Eastwick. I have to admit, I have kept coming back hoping for an update. It sounds like you're both ready and understanding that the road ahead of you is long and hard. But I think by the sound of it, you're both willing to do the work. You've got this. Cheering you on and sending you so much positivity. User Maxzaddy. Happy to read this update. I chuckled when he asked about reading your posts. Had to remain stubborn, I would have said hell yeah. But it sounds like at this point it wouldn't do anyone any good. Good luck with everything and enjoy tonight. User Corfiz74. I'm really glad he's getting therapy. It sounds like he has a lot of trauma to work through and overcome. And I'm glad you found each other and you understand him so well and love him because of how he is. The journey continues. Let's smoothly transition into our next story, fueled by your enthusiasm. Hit that like button if you're ready for more tales from the Reddit universe. I think my husband is sleeping with the babysitter. I'm still trying to process this in my mind while typing this out. Husband and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4. We have 2 children, a 2-year-old and 4-year-old. Both of us work full-time. I'm realtor and husband owns his own business. We've had a number of different nannies in the past. Sometimes our parents end up watching the kids. About 8 months ago, my husband told me that one of his friend's daughter, we'll call her Ella 20F, was looking for a part-time job during college. We live in a small college town, so her commute wouldn't be far. We tried her out one night and it went smoothly. She's always been nice to me and the kids love her. My suspicion started last month when I came home early to find my husband had been home. Ella was also at the house babysitting. I asked my husband why he didn't send her home if he was home. His response was, she's just trying to make a little money and that the kids were having fun. Then 2 weeks ago, I drove by my husband's office on the way to a meeting, and her car was parked there. I asked my husband later about what Ella was doing at the office. He said that she probably stopped by to see her dad. Now when I come home, Ella is always dressed up more with makeup done and heels on. 2 days ago, I found strands of blonde hair in the backseat of my husband's truck. I have blonde hair, but this was closer to Ella's shade. Also, I don't think my husband would do anything in the backseat since he's 6'6", 240 pounds. Last night, I found the opportunity to check my husband's phone while he was with the kids. I didn't find any romantic texts between them, but I could definitely tell that text messages had been deleted. If you read the conversation, it didn't make sense, because it was obviously missing the middle part. I talked to my friend this morning, and she pointed out that my husband has a type: blonde women. Ella falls perfectly in that category. Should I confront him right now, or should I wait to find something more concrete? Update 1. Nanny is currently at the house right now. Tracked husband using Find My iPhone, and he's also headed home. 30-minute drive. They both think I'll be working until 7 p.m. today. I'm going to walk into the house 15 minutes after husband gets home unannounced. Not sure what the plan is if I catch them. I unfortunately don't have access to his phone logs since his phone plan is through his business. We have cameras on the outside of the house. We have a baby monitor near the kid's bed. I'm not ready to fire her unless I get solid evidence of my husband cheating. I need to know if my husband is having any sort of romantic relationship with her first. Update 2. I wasn't able to get the concrete evidence I was looking for, but some more circumstantial evidence. Tracked husband through Find My iPhone. He stopped on his way home at the grocery store for 10 minutes. I decided to park and wait on a side street. That way I could see when my husband would get home. Husband got home at 5:30 p.m. Ella was scheduled to work until 6 p.m. We have a long gravel driveway that leads to our house. I decided to park near the barn so I wouldn't be heard pulling up to the house. Walked in the front door and found Ella feeding my 4-year-old. She was also preparing dinner in the kitchen. Today she had on a tight top, skirt, and platform heels. I asked if she knew where my husband was. She replied, "He was upstairs taking a shower." She then immediately went over to the living room to pick up her phone and send a text message to someone. Also in the living room were a fresh bouquet of flowers. I asked her about the flowers, and she said a guy she's been seeing gave them to her today. She said she didn't want to leave them in the car, so she brought them inside. I asked her about the guy that she was seeing. She said he was from school and wasn't sure if it was going anywhere. I went upstairs to see if my husband left his phone was in the bedroom. He left his phone on the dresser. Sure enough, the newest text message was from Ella that read, "Your wife is home." I tried looking up the deleted messages on his phone, but they had been permanently deleted. I decided to wait in our bedroom for my husband to come out of the shower. He comes out and is surprised to see me in the bedroom. Told him my 6:30 showing got cancelled. I tried to initiate intercourse to see how he would react. He said he didn't feel comfortable doing it while Ella was in the house. At this point, Ella was upstairs in my younger son's room, which shares a wall with our room. Ella leaves the house at 6 p.m. with the flowers. After dinner, my husband mentioned to me about buying Ella a new car for Christmas, and his reasoning was that her car was old and not safe for our kids to ride in. I told him that I would think about it. I'm thinking about firing her on Monday without telling my husband, and see how they both react. I'm still trying to process everything going on, still hoping all of this is just me overthinking. I really love my husband, and I can't stand the thought of our beautiful family splitting up. Thanks for all the advice. Keep those keyboards active. In the story update, we're incorporating more of your opinions. It's like crafting a story together, and your input is invaluable. Update. I think my husband is sleeping with the babysitter. Yesterday morning, I met up with Ella and told her that we wouldn't be needing her services anymore, due to my little sister being available to watch the kids, which is true. She quietly said that she understood, and said to let her know if I would change my mind. Husband called me 5 minutes later, sounding very upset about Ella being fired. I think Ella told him, but he claimed her dad told him that we fired her. I told him that was my final decision, and there was no changing it. He came home 20 minutes later and asked me why I didn't talk to him first about firing her. I told him about everything I've noticed between them, from the text to the clothing attire she wears. He denied everything, and said it was all in my head. I told him if you want this marriage not to end in a divorce, he had to cut all contact with Ella. After 1 hour of arguing, he finally agreed to not contact her anymore. I honestly don't have the mental energy to deal with a divorce, split my kids, date again. I don't want to be the single mom always busy and unhappy. I told him to never bring her up again. I don't know 100% if they had an affair, but I think it's better for my health not to find out. I think I'm going to quit my job and raise my kids, work on my marriage. I'm not sure if this was all because I've been working a lot of hours and have been distant from my husband. Thanks again for all the support. One more thing, men, stop messaging me pictures of your private parts on Reddit. Well, looks like we've got ourselves a suburban spy thriller, starring your husband, the babysitter, and the bouquet of flowers. Move over, James Bond. We've got a realtor on the case. First off, kudos to you for playing detective and firing Ella without tipping your hand. That's some next-level strategic planning. Forget about board games. You're playing 4D chess with your family's future. And your husband, Mr. Text-deleting Casanova, denying everything? Classic move. It's like a soap opera, but with fewer roses and more real estate drama. Now, the decision to quit your job and focus on the family drama, bold move. It's like quitting a reality show to pursue a career in, well, reality. Let's hope your husband is ready to step up and make amends, and not just buy cars for babysitters. But hey, life is full of unexpected plot twists. Maybe this is the kick in the heels that your marriage needed. And for those gentlemen sending unsolicited pictures, seriously, read the room. This isn't a casting call for desperate realtors of Reddit. Before we unravel the next chapter, let's take a pit stop at the community comments. Your thoughts and reactions are the heartbeat of our discussions. User Terrible Wave 1238. You gonna demand open device and tracking. No deleting of messages. No separate accounts, full transparency. He's just gonna go underground. User Strong TX Woman. Quitting your job? It is a big mistake most divorced women make. Who is going to hire you again with a big lapse of employment history? Generally for most women in most situations. There are exceptions, but they are few and far between. User Biker Girl Writer 120. Don't quit your job op. That's how ladies that need to get away from abusive husbands don't always get away from them, because they don't have a job or they'd quit it and rely on the husband. The comment section has been buzzing with energy. Now, let's channel that excitement into our next story. Get ready for more surprises and twists. Finding out my 24M girlfriend, 27F, has 4 kids, not one with update. I was seeing a girl, made things official 4 months ago. She told me she had 1 child, a 3-year-old from a long-term relationship, which I was fine with. She also told me she had an emergency hysterectomy and couldn't have any more. She had a scar. So I had no reason to doubt this. Turned out it was a C-section scar. Used condoms initially until 2 months in when we exchanged test results. Found out via 3-year-old's dad that he was a one-night stand. She taunted him about how she inseminated herself with his condom. She gets a good chunk in child support from him. Found out she has 3 other kids that she dropped off to her 60-year-old widowed mom, who's supporting them all. Dad's not involved in their lives. Different dads to all. Oldest is 9, youngest is just 1. Dropped the oldest 2 when they were 5 and 3, claiming she couldn't be a mother anymore. Had another baby, 3-year-old, decided to keep her but not the others. Had another baby a year ago who she dropped to her mom after a month. Blocked her mom and her older kids from contacting her. Doesn't see them or even phone them. 3-year-old is in her custody. Dad went via the court to gain access. He takes 3-year-old to visit siblings at her mom's during his contact time. Poor kids beg him to ask their mom to contact them and give him drawings, etc. to pass on to their mom, in hopes she will want to see them. Making 3-year-old's father upset, so he had an argument with her, which is how I found out. Literally just dropped 2 kids and a newborn with her mom, who's struggling to care for them, whilst having to work full-time. This girl appears as the most trustworthy, genuine girl in the world. You believe everything she says, and you feel like you've never met a girl like her, and can tell her anything, and that she's also a best friend. Father to 3-year-old thought the same initially. It's all fake. I can't believe how good of an actress she is. Confronted her, told her I wasn't leaving her because she had 4 kids, but because she lied about it. She went into defense mode, threatened to tell my mom secrets I told her in confidence if I left her. Then tells me she's pregnant with me. From her dates, it happened when we were using condoms, so I strongly suspect she tampered with them. Paying for a prenatal DNA test, being done Tuesday, will have results Thursday. Update to yesterday, as people were suggesting she wasn't really pregnant. I ordered her a pregnancy test for delivery. She took it on FaceTime to me and it was positive. She says when the results come back, she's going to send them to everyone. Don't know where to go from here, assuming it's mine. She seems so sure and wants to rush it so she can prove it to my family by sending it to them. They don't even know about this and will be so disappointed in me. She just wants to hurt me. I want to explain to them in my own time after the test, but she's adamant as soon as results are through, she's sending it to them. Nasty, bitter, manipulative women. I can't believe someone who I felt was my best friend, perfect and trustworthy, turned out to be this. How can she just leave 3 kids with her mom and refuse contact when they cry over her and want her? She treats children like items. Sure, she will want to keep my baby, as she will get good child support as she does with 3-year-old. Gets nothing for the others, I assume why they're abandoned with her mother. Or perhaps she will do the same to this child. The story evolves with your perspectives. In the story update, we're integrating more of your opinions. Keep those comments coming as we shape the narrative together. Update. Her, 27F. Baby is mine, 24M. Had a prenatal DNA test done Tuesday. Paid for next day results. Some said they thought she was lying about being pregnant. Got the results. She is pregnant, and I am the dad. DNA lab took her blood sample, isolated fetal DNA, and compared it to my DNA, which was a positive match. She doesn't have the results. I only gave my contact details as the report has a photo of my ID on, as I had to confirm my identity. And during the prenatal test with other child's father, she sent the report to random people showing his ID and personal info. She keeps calling me to find out the results, and I keep declining her calls. Not ready to speak to her yet. Not sure what to do, need to tell my parents. No way I can care for a baby without some guidance from them. She is adamant she is keeping the baby herself. Custody, she won't abort. Wants me to pay for things already like crib, pram, etc. Spoke to her mom, who is convinced the baby will be dropped off to her at some point after birth, and has expressed she cannot look after a 4th child, as she's in her mid-60s with an adult disabled son, already raising 3 kids and working full-time. She said if it happens again, she will have to hand the baby over to CPS. She's very upset at that thought. Not sure what I do now. Do I phone her and tell her the results were positive? Do I see how things go and allow her to have custody and only take over if she drops baby to her mom? Do I file for custody and fight for custody as soon as baby is born, providing statements showing she uses babies like objects and has a history of abandonment from her mom and ex? I will have to spend thousands in court, and I'm not even sure if they will give child to me despite her history, as they declined giving custody to 3-year-old's dad when he went to court. Not sure what to do. Not even ready for a baby. But seems I now have to decide whether I fight or try to co-parent with this insane woman. I have told my parents, wider family live in New Zealand, so they don't know yet. Parents are disappointed, but very understanding when I explained what happened, and the situation that I was almost definitely trapped, and that she has a record of abandoning children that aren't of financial use. Mother has agreed that I should fight for custody, and that if I get custody, or mother hands baby over to me, which given her record and her mother's refusal to take any more kids, may be the outcome. My mother has said that she will move in with me for the first months to help me learn how to look after a baby. Just need to get a solicitor now. More update. So was already in contact with 3-year-old's father. He's given a statement and evidence via text that she inseminated herself. From her mom, we have contact details of eldest and youngest child, not the second eldest. Oldest child's dad won't speak to us. Says they were dating for 4 years and nothing bad happened with them, like it's happened with us, and that he doesn't want to get involved. Fair enough, I guess. Youngest child's dad, 1-year-old, was contacted. Same experience. But they did have unprotected intercourse, albeit she told him the same about not being able to get pregnant after hysterectomy. Has texts from her demanding child support and saying she would get him done for rape, etc. He's provided those texts and a statement. In terms of the 1-year-old child, though, he doesn't want involvement or any part of child's life, which sucks for the child and the grandmother, but found out he's only 19. She trapped him when he was 18. He has a sports career, so obviously money was a huge factor for this entrapment. First off, kudos to you for being a detective and getting that prenatal DNA test. Seems like you've graduated from Relationship University with a major in investigation studies. Now, we have the baby is mine revelation, and the plot thickens. Your ex-girlfriend sounds like a real piece of work, a maestro in the symphony of manipulation. Taunting about inseminating herself? That's not just drama, that's a Shakespearean tragedy in the making. The real question now is, how do you navigate this treacherous sea of lies and deceit? It's like playing chess with a grandmaster who has a secret rulebook. But fear not, you've got a supportive family, especially your mom, who's ready to move in and help you navigate the storm. Custody battles and drama aside, you're not alone. Your family's got your back, and that's worth its weight in gold. Plus, you've got a hilarious story to tell at family gatherings in the future. Remember that time I accidentally dated a character from a telenovela? Our community is a treasure trove of insights. So let's take a moment to dive into the comments before we immerse ourselves in the next intriguing story. User Kenpachisme2227. Please lawyer up. She's smart when it comes to this. You have to get the leg up on her. Otherwise, she is going to treat your baby as a meal ticket. Speak with your parents if you have, but get a lawyer before you tell her the results. User Trillium Summer. The answer to everything is get a lawyer. Discuss with them. Figure out what to do. Get things lined up. Get evidence that you can while she's pregnant. Don't block her phone, but once you've finally told her the results, limit contact, but keep everything she sends. Make sure her mom knows you'd want the kid and to call you if she ever drops the baby off. Go over a plan for this with your lawyer. User Secret Double, Jar9239. Speak to a lawyer about reproductive coercion and see if there is any charges they could bring against her. It might get her to agree to an abortion if you agree not to press charges, or it might convince her to relinquish her parental rights to the child if you wanted to raise it without her. The excitement is building up. Now let's seamlessly transition into our next gripping story. Your anticipation fuels the journey. Let's see where this one takes us. My 40-year husband resents me, 33F, for my disabilities, and I don't know how to handle it. Honestly, I didn't even know what to put for the title. That's a big part of it, I guess, but I also resent him for his alcoholism and his blatant hatred towards us. We've been together roughly 10 years now, and I can count on 2 hands how many times we've actually done anything together. Anytime I try to get him to do anything with us, he takes off drinking and partying instead. We have 2 kids together, which especially hurts me that they never get to do anything as a family. My disabilities come in play because he uses it as an excuse to take off drinking or to not stay at the house with us. Whenever I ask for help with anything, he'll snap at me. Why can't I do it myself knowing I can barely walk? And it is difficult to even stand up. I'll have to ask him several times to do something like take out the trash, and he'll just get mad. I didn't do it instead. I do my best to keep clean, but can't keep up with things alone. He'll do some sort of small pickup once or twice a week, but say he's the one doing it all, completely ignoring everything I've already done. I haven't even seen a doctor for one of my major issues because I don't have reliable childcare or transportation. I can't drive and he won't take me. Public transportation and Uber aren't really available here. But I do need surgeries for one of my problems that I can't get because I'll have to have a lot of help while recovering, and I can't rely on him to be there for me. He'll even make fun of me for only showering every 3 or 4 days, knowing it's because I can't stand that long and it's hard for me to get out of the bath sitting, and he won't let me get a shower chair. I don't know what to do. I've had so many conversations with him where he believes there's absolutely no problem and has an excuse for everything I say. I'd leave him, but I haven't worked in, I believe, 6 years now and don't even know what work I could do at home while still caring for the 2 kids, one of who is also disabled. I'm also worried if we divorced, he'd get custody since I don't work, can't drive, have no help from family or friends, and my disabilities might lead to me being considered not able to care for them properly alone. My state also doesn't have many resources. We separated once and I got basically no help, except a small amount of food stamps. I have no idea what I should do. Now tension is oozing from every sentence. we've got a husband escaping into the wild world of alcoholism and parties while the wife is left juggling disabilities and 2 kids. It's a plot twist you didn't see coming, right? But hey, this is the kind of suspense you can't binge on Netflix. Let's talk stereotypes. Forget the sitcom portrayal of a perfect family. This is the real deal, with disabilities, alcoholism, and household chores that never seem to end. It's like they're breaking free from the mold and saying, "Hey world, we're not your typical family. Deal with it. We're rooting for you." The unsung hero dealing with more twists than a daytime soap opera. Life's messy, relationships are complicated, but remember, you're the star of your own show. It's time for a plot twist. Maybe it's a job opportunity, a superhero cape for that invisible workload, or just a change in the narrative. Before we continue our adventure, let's tap into the wealth of opinions in the community comments. Your perspectives are like puzzle pieces that complete the story. User McMurmel, you need a lawyer and you need to get your family involved for help. You are missing crucial doctor appointment and need an operation. You are getting worse and you need to reach out and get help. This guy is a bum and you don't need him. Get to a lawyer. User Hruvgogviv, you need to get your health problems sorted. There must be some kind of taxi service where you live. When you start getting the right treatment, you can work yourself up from there. You will have more strength physically and emotionally. Your doctor can help you with access to other resources as well. User Science is Slice. There are disability lawyers who only take money when you win disability. It's a great deal. Please find one. If you don't know how to find one, your local librarian can help you. They know a lot. Your enthusiasm fuels the journey. Now let's seamlessly transition into our last story. Get comfortable, because things are about to get interesting. My M27 sister, F29, thinks she caught me cheating with my wife's F25 girlfriend, F26. My family will not understand their relationship. How do I explain this to my family without them seeing my wife differently? My wife Sophie, F25, is in a poly relationship with me, M27, and her girlfriend Rachel, F26. Sophie and I have been married for 5 years, and she has been in a relationship with Rachel for 6 months, with my blessing. I met Rachel 3 months ago. Rachel and I have become close friends. Besides my wife, we have a lot in common. Same interests, same sense of humor. Rachel is 100% lesbian and has absolutely no desire for anything sexual with any male. Backstory, I am an atheist IT professional, 6 foot of muscles, tattoos, piercings. I look like a biker, but without the bike. I am on the spectrum. You wouldn't notice if you met me, but I can do advanced math and coding in my head. Perfect for my job. Sophie is an event manager with a big event organizer. She was raised Christian and had to hide her sexuality. With my help, she left the church and in the process cut off her family. We moved to my hometown and got married. In a crisis in our marriage 6 months ago, she confessed she almost cheated on me with Rachel. They kissed, and Sophie freaked out. That was the first time she confessed to me that she was attracted to women. After a lot of crying and talking, we've decided on the poly relationship. She has been with Rachel ever since. This saved our marriage, and we've never been happier. Today, Rachel visited us. We have a pool, and the girls were sunbathing topless and chatting while I was working on my laptop sitting next to them, occasionally joining the conversation. Sophie got an emergency call from work and had to leave for an hour. Rachel is very comfortable around me, and we are close friends, so both of us did not think about her having to cover up. We were talking as normal, teasing and laughing as usual. I got up to pour her a glass of rose. The moment I handed it to her, my sister Emily, F29, who has the key, walked in. All she saw was her brother handing a glass of wine to a beautiful topless woman who is not his wife. My sister and the rest of my family are not aware of the relationship between Sophie and Rachel. Emily lost it. She started yelling at me and accusing me of cheating. I did not get a chance to get a word in, but I was getting angry when she started cussing at Rachel, calling her a slut and a homewrecker. Rachel covered up and ran inside. I dragged Emily out of my house and she didn't stop cussing and yelling. Rachel locked herself in the bathroom crying and wouldn't come out till Sophie came home to comfort her. My phone is blowing up with texts and voicemails. My parents, sister, and cousins are calling me all kinds of nasty things and are accusing me of cheating. They haven't called Sophie yet, but knowing them, they soon will. I love my wife. Her relationship with Rachel saved our marriage. I love Rachel for being there for her. I don't think my family will understand the relationship between Sophie and Rachel. The story isn't over yet. In our next update, we're weaving in more of your opinions and reactions. Your voices are an integral part of the storytelling process. Update, my M27, sister, F29, thinks she caught me cheating with my wife's F25 girlfriend, F26. My family will not understand their relationship. How do I explain this to my family without them seeing my wife differently? My mother called Sophie and she responded with, "Mom, I know why you're calling. It is not what you think it is, and we'll explain some other time. Now tell everyone to stop harassing your son. He did nothing wrong." Rachel stayed the night in the guest bedroom. That night, the 3 of us had a talk. Unbeknown to us, Rachel has had her own trauma with a homewrecker. Her parents divorced, and her mother was trauma dumping on her daughter. There is more, but let's leave it at that. This is why Rachel was so upset when Emily verbally attacked her. Sophie told Rachel that she would understand if she wanted to break up now. Rachel wanted to try to fix things before throwing in the towel. The next morning at breakfast, we were talking about what to do now. Sophie thought it was time to come out to my family. They have been her only family for the last 5 years. We decided to invite my parents and sister over to have the conversation. Rachel wanted to be by Sophie's site when she came out, so in the afternoon, my parents and sister came over. My dad was quiet. If you know him, that's not good. Mom was crying and Emily was cussing at me. As soon as she saw Rachel, she wanted to approach her. I know my sister and how aggressive she can be, so I made sure I was standing between her and Rachel at all times, which thinking back might have sent the wrong message. Emily is afraid of nothing and nobody. But she also knows she cannot get past me if I don't want her to. Sophie is a godsend. She was able to get everyone to calm down, sit down and listen. She told them everything. My parents were already aware of the emotional abuse she got in her church, but not to what extent. Sophie told them about her having to hide who she was, her sexuality, what happened at the big event, the trouble we had because of how she reacted afterwards. My suggestion for the one-sided open marriage. She took Rachel's hand and said they have been in a relationship for 6 months, I added with my blessing. Emily started accusing Sophie of cheating, and that is when I lost it. I yelled at her that this is our marriage. Nobody cheated. This is the way we are happy. She doesn't have to understand it, but she has to accept it. I'm not sure Emily is convinced and on board, especially after what happened later. I had to explain to my mother a few times that Sophie and I are not breaking up, and that Sophie is in a relationship with 2 people. I'm still not sure she understands, but at least she is not angry anymore. Dad asked a few questions. I had to explain that my relationship with Rachel is platonic, but we are close. As soon as he cracked a corny joke, I knew we were good. Then we had to explain what happened the day before and why I was alone with Rachel, who was topless sunbathing at my pool. When we came to the part where Emily walked in, my mother asked her a question. Why did she walk in unannounced? We gave her a key in case of an emergency, not to casually walk in whenever she wanted. Turned out Emily sometimes visited our home when we were away to borrow a bottle of wine. Sophie and I have 1 car. If it's not in the driveway on a Saturday, it usually means nobody is home. After hearing that, the key went from Emily to Rachel. First off, tension is skyrocketing. The sister walks in on a seemingly scandalous scene and suddenly, it's chaos. Accusations, cussing, and a whole lot of emotional turmoil. You can almost hear the dramatic music playing in the background, right? Now, we've got an atheist IT professional biker-looking guy who's actually a softie and a math wizard. Flip the script much? And Sophie, the event manager breaking free from a strict Christian upbringing. It's like they're rewriting the family playbook, tearing down those stereotypes one unconventional relationship at a time. And, well, the sister borrowing a bottle of wine. Classic sitcom move. Who knew a key meant for emergencies would turn into a family version of Let's Make a Deal? What's behind door number 1, Emily? Surprise, it's drama. And drops the bomb on the family with a declaration that could rival any Shakespearean plot twist. Polyamory, 6 months of bliss with Rachel, and a husband who not only knows but also approves. Cue the jaw drops and raised eyebrows. As the revelations unfold, there's a collective pause. Dad cracks a corny joke, breaking the tension. Leave it to Dad to lighten the mood with a dad joke. It's practically a superhero power. Now let's not forget the sister Emily, who's been leading the accusatory charge. Suddenly, the wind seems to leave her sails. The awe moment hits when the spotlight turns to her unauthorized wine-borrowing escapades. Irony, thy name is Emily. The family dynamic is shifting, the unconventional love story is out, and maybe, just maybe, this tale of unexpected relationships will challenge the family to redefine what love and commitment mean. Before we dive into the last part, let's take a moment to check out what you, our incredible audience, are saying in the comments. Your opinions truly matter. User Bonham42. Emily is mad at herself because her jumping the gun caused her to look like an AH. Hard being an avenging angel when you're not actually avenging anyone. User Green Days X. This is so obviously fake. Any reasonable person would have just said it was their friend tanning and their wife was okay with them being topless around the spouse. User Terser78. It would have been more believable if you hadn't suddenly made the accuser the villain. These stories always seem to have more plot twists than a telenovela. As we wrap up this Reddit story, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more captivating Reddit stories. Your support means the world to me. I enjoy, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.